Hi all, my name's Tara Vassefi, and I am the branch contact for the DC, Maryland, Virginia branch of the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom. I say it like this because we also call it the Occupied Piscataway and Nechongtank Territory branch. We also call it Chocolate City because DC was the largest Black metropolitan center up until this latest census. And we also call it the belly of the peace. So we're figuring out our name sovereignty. I'm going to hand it over to Lydia to briefly introduce herself and give us our land acknowledgement for tonight.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lydia. Nice to meet you all. Thank you, Tara. I am a Howard University graduate, class of 2023. My major is in International Affairs and Africana Studies. I am a DC resident, very proud DC resident, but I'm currently in Connecticut visiting family. So I will start off my land acknowledgement by saying that I'm speaking tonight from Tunxis and Sakyog ancestral lands. Those are both Eastern Algonquin tribes in Connecticut. And so as we gather together across Turtle Island and beyond to advocate for a just and peaceful world, we must begin by expressing gratitude for the land we live on and recognize that we inhabit the territories of the Indigenous people. Our Indigenous siblings have lovingly nurtured this sanctuary, and thus we can't simply acknowledge this past. We have an obligation as WILPF, as people, as folks who live on this land, an obligation to honor and learn from the traditional caretakers of the land. So the Honor Native Land campaign challenges us to take our advocacy further than just mere recognition by building meaningful communities and taking informed action. So as WILPF members, we are committed to this work to reconnect with the earth and to build a future that will include all people, protect access to nature and water for all people, and begin healing generations of harm and violence. So tonight, with open hearts, open minds, peaceful minds, we will allow Indigenous wisdom to guide us back to nature and each other. So thank you for giving me the time to speak, and I look forward to hearing everyone else.
Thank you, Lydia. I'd really like to know if you can share briefly, how did you find WILPF? I think that folks would want to know the answer to that. Oh,
I think we all find WILPF in various ways, but she inquired.
Okay, I was unmute. I was muted. I'm sorry. I was waiting on the unmute. So I found WILPF. I was actually just looking for local organizations that sort of had things to do with my interests, and obviously international human rights is a big interest of mine. And then also just specifically, I'm in one of Dee's committees. This is the DPOW, Domestic Prisoners of War section. So that is sort of like my specific interest. And my specific group within the organization right now. But I'm always looking to do more, meet more people, do more things. So Dee's been really instrumental in kind of getting that started. So yeah, that's sort of my journey with that. I've been around since about April of last year. Yeah.
amazing. Okay, great. Well, you'll have to start joining the DC meetings. Okay, all. Thank you so much, Lydia. Thank you, little sister. My name again is Tara Vassefi. I am the DC branch contact. And I just wanted to, well, so I'll share that I keep meeting more and more women who we understand that we've been looking for each other. As Rumi said, what you are seeking is seeking you. And I feel like I just need to say that myself and Sophie Antonelli, if you haven't connected with her, she's the membership coordinator for WILPF International. Both of us connected at the Commission for the Status of Women at the UN a couple months ago. And right away we were like, we've been looking for this our whole lives. And so it's just so wonderful to be able to be part of a community of women-led revolutionaries and just like tap into this treasure trove of wisdom and courage and all the things that it's like it's all there. We just have to act on it, as is the theme of this Congress. So I wanted to share a couple of things that you should all know is available to you. we have this local branch core organizing document that has all the information about what we've been doing since we started. And there's another thing that is part of our community, which is this book. It's called a herstory book. And it's basically a collection of memories and different things from WILPF organizing and I would say mutualism and organizing for peace and freedom in DC or in Chocolate City or occupied Piscataway and Nechangtang territories. And that image that I just showed you in the herstory book is here's a little piece from the archives, which is when we started. When we restarted this branch, the DC branch, I think is in its third iteration. And this is a big part of our story is that I just dropped it in the chat, the program for when we restarted in June 2022. And you have the core organizing document, and then coming all the way now to this last month's meeting. We meet every second Monday of the month. Virtually and in person at the Women's Institute for Freedom of the Press. If you all know Martha Allen or her mother, Dr. Diane Allen, was also very active in WILPF in the 60s and onward. And so we meet every second Monday of the month at 4 p.m. And our most recent meeting was focused on water. And what we did is we had a prompt where everyone shared a story or a memory or some information about where they get their water. And then one of our recent members, Kim Poole, who's amazing and will be speaking at WILPF Congress at 2 p.m. on Sunday, gave this excellent presentation called The Way of Water. And here are the herstory notes, as I call them. So yeah, that's pretty much what's going on here in this nation's capital. And I would love to connect with any WILPF member. I'd love to meet you in person, and just get to know you all. And so if you have any questions or anything that I can answer, please let me know. And other than that, I'm so excited for tonight's Congress session. Thanks so much, Dee, and thank you to everyone who made this reunion of peace and freedom revolutionaries possible.
Thank you for amazing land acknowledgements and opening, Tara and Lydia. So tonight, Nancy Price, who is our committee program chair, will be the host and facilitator. And Nancy, whenever you are ready, and also the chair of Earth Democracy, which I introduced last night in my opening. So Nancy, whenever you are ready, please gear us in the right direction.
Flow us into the right direction. Well, thank you very much. And it's nice to meet everybody who's gathered now at this hour. We've been having some wonderful gatherings since we began on Wednesday. And today we had some, with our water breakout sessions, we had some very intense and productive conversations about topics connected to regions, just transition from exploitation and contamination of water to how do we protect water? How do we protect, how do we engage in legislation, activism, building coalitions going forward? First, we're going to, in our schedule, we have Lois, who will make an introduction to the UN Special Rapporteur on water as a human right and sanitation. And then we will move forward to meet our Rise Up sisters, who we've just become acquainted with, although I think many of us know some of the work that's been going on about Line 3 and Line 5 in Michigan and Minnesota, but we had never really connected with all the tribal people who are working to block, well, who are pointing out the problems with the pipelines, the threats of leaks, and contaminating water and land of tribal members, and also the surrounding land, and what can be done, how we can organize, how we can build a coalition with our new sisters of R.I.S.E, and also learn from them. So they will be speaking. They were planned to speak from 8 to 8:30. We have extended that to 8:45, and then we will consider after that what sort of breakout rooms we'd like to have to discuss particular topics, and or maybe just concentrate on seeing a very interesting film. So I'll come to back to that a bit later, but first I'd like to introduce you to Lois Herman. Lois?
Thank you, Nancy. Hello to everyone. I'm Lois Herman. I have been a WILPF woman for many years, both in the United States and in Europe, and collaborating with WILPF International many times. I have been for years the WILPF representative to FAO, the UN Food and Agriculture Organization. I'm founder and manager of WUNREN, which is Women's UN Report Network. WUNREN is based on a UN study which addresses the human rights, empowerment, and oppression of women and girls all over the world. We have a daily listserv. I invite all of you, any of you, to be part of that. It's free, and it goes global every day. WUNREN is actively involved at the UN and at the EU and many other international bodies and regions of the UN. And today, we are especially honored to have a message, a video from the UN Special Rapporteur on the right to water and sanitation. It's unique and it's special to be able to have a UN Special Rapporteur give us a message in these very busy, complex times. Mr. Pedro Arrojo-Agudo is the UN Special Rapporteur on the human right to safe drinking water and sanitation. He was appointed to the Human Rights Council of the UN in September of 2020, and he started his mandate on November 1st of that year. Mr. Arrojo-Agudo has urged countries to move from the traditional view of water as a mere resource. He says this approach fosters competition and confrontation. We need to move to an ecosystem and human rights approach that benefits everyone living within these basins, regardless of their country. He believes that the Security Council should prioritize working in transboundary water management as an avenue to promote peace and security. He believes that the transition to a global imperative on water will build security for hundreds of millions of people and achieve more peace in this world. The Special Rapporteur says that water is the blue soul of life, and it must always be an argument for peace and cooperation. Using it to generate conflict or as warfare strategies should be prevented. The Special Rapporteur is part of the UN Special Procedures, which is a group of independent experts in the UN system. And you can find his his website under Human Rights Council. He is an emeritus professor of economic analysis at the University of Zaragoza in Spain, and he previously served as an elected member of the Spanish Parliament during the 11th and 12th legislatures from 2016 to 2019. It is really very much a privilege for us to see this video from the Special Rapporteur on Water and Sanitation.
Sasa, you want to cue that up? Thank you.
Dear friends, first of all, thank you for the invitation to address this 35th Triennial Congress of the US section of WILPF on the theme Water on the Front Lines for Peace. You represent more than a century of pacifist feminism. I know well from my wife, Carmen Magallon, a member of WILPF Spain, how WILPF was born, challenging the First World War in that assembly in The Hague that gathered 1,300 women after crossing war frontiers. Their example and their coherence are essential today in times when the arms race is once again reactivated and the folly of war is glorified. My name is Pedro Arrojo-Agudo. I am a professor of economic analysis at the University of Zaragoza, Spain. And I had the honor of being appointed UN Special Rapporteur on the human right to safe drinking water and sanitation 3 years ago. An honor, by the way, that is as overwhelming as it is exciting. Among others, humanity faces a global crisis that is particularly paradoxical. The global water crisis on planet water. The blue planet, with some 2 billion people without guaranteed access to safe drinking water and more than 4 billion without basic sanitations. Billions of people who are not, for the most part, properly thirsty people without water in their living environments, but extremely impoverished people who live next to rivers or uncontaminated aquifers, or whose waters have been grabbed by powerful productive interests. A crisis in which women and girls bear the hardest jobs and the greatest risks. They devote much of their lives to fetching clean water for their families and communities. There are 3 challenges that I propose to address to tackle this global water crisis. First, promote democratic water governance understood as a common good and not as a commodity, and guaranteeing the equal participation of women. Second, make peace with our rivers and aquatic ecosystems as the key to making drinking water available to those 2 billion impoverished people. And third, make water the blue soul of life, an argument for peace and cooperation. Last year, I devoted one of my 2 annual thematic reports to the Human Rights Council, Plenary in Geneva, and to the UN General Assembly in New York, to this third challenge, making water an argument for peace and collaboration among peoples sharing transboundary river basins and aquifers. We are talking about 153 countries, 286 river basins, and 592 transboundary aquifers, where nature manages 60% of the fresh water available to us on islands and continents. Rivers have traditionally united riparian peoples, regardless of cultural, religious, or ethnic differences. On the other hand, water, in all ancestral worldviews, from the sacred respect for Mother Nature, and in particular for rivers, lakes, and springs, has been managed as a common good, accessible to all and leaving no one behind. Unfortunately, to the extent that we prioritize the use of water as a productive resource over its life-sustaining functions and values, we will be called upon to compete and confront each other to appropriate the resource. However, to the extent that we move from a resource-based approach to an ecosystem approach, understanding that a river is not a simple H2O channel, just as a forest cannot be managed as a simple timber store, we will be called upon to collaborate in the sustainable management of the river as a living ecosystem for the benefit of all. Such a transition is more urgent and necessary than ever if we are to face the growing risks of drought and floods that climate change generates. In the face of the dogmatic and senseless application of the principle of national sovereignty of the waters of rivers draining transboundary basins, we must remember that just as storms and hurricanes do not respect areas of national sovereignty, rivers do not recognize borders when it comes to the risks generated by droughts and floods for riparian populations. Unfortunately, there is no shortage of those who use water as a weapon of war against the population. In Ukraine, in Syria, and particularly in Gaza, we see this on a daily basis. In my report to the General Assembly, just before the war began, I warned of the inhuman blockade suffered by the 2.2 billion Palestinians, 1.7 million of whom are refugees forcibly displaced from their homes, their villages, and their land. 2.2 million people who have lived for the last 17 years in the largest open-air prison ever known to mankind, with severe restrictions on access to drinking water. But with war, cutting off the supply of water, food, and medicine is being used as a weapon against this population, which is a crime against humanity, according to Article 7 of the Rome Statute, which characterizes it as a crime of extermination. Today, having only 5 liters per person per day of salinized water with high fecal contamination, this is a silent, particularly lethal bomb, especially for children. Especially for children. There is a need to move from traditional approaches to managing water as a resource to human rights-based ecosystem approaches at the basin level, developing the principles of equity, reciprocity, and sustainability promoted by the UN Water Convention. This is the only way to address the risks of climate change and to prevent, address, and overcome conflicts. The necessary collaboration in water management is therefore key to peace, cooperation, and progress among the peoples bordering transboundary basins, lakes, and aquifers. Ensuring human rights to safe drinking water for all, and the sustainability of shared rivers and aquifers by promoting equitable management of available resources may not guarantee peace, but it certainly helps to prevent conflicts and provides a substantive basis for developing cooperation between peoples and countries. I ended my address to the General Assembly last year by proposing to take up water as a blue flag of peace, just as the UN flag is. Thank you very much.
I think you can see that he is very straightforward in expressing his values and his the basis of his that are the basis for his statements on policy and future discussions and perhaps new approaches at the UN, especially when the Sustainable Development Goals are slated to be achieved by 2030. I think that's a pretty ambitious schedule now. And that Sustainable Development Goal 6 is water and sanitation. So I hope very much that what we just heard him express now is part of what he will advocate for when the Sustainable Development Goals are being discussed and how they will be financed and how they will be implemented. Thank you very much. I would like very quickly to remind you that tomorrow, Friday, at 2:30 to 3:30, the documentary film, Thirsty for Justice, The Struggle for the Human Right to Water will be shown. And that is a documentary of how in California, we worked for 4 years to have that human right legislation signed by Governor Brown after 4 years of work and coalition building to ensure that everyone in California, although we're still working to make that a reality, can have access to safe, affordable, and sufficient water for personal and household use. So tomorrow, Friday at 2:30, you can make that choice. If you go to the additional programming on the Congress website, you can just check that again if you forget the time. Thank you. Now it takes me great pleasure to introduce the R.I.S.E Coalition. Is our resilient Indigenous sisters engaging in the work to ensure that the oil and gas pipelines, that extractive industries, and that other ways of profiting from Mother Nature and creating what I might say is environmental havoc and enduring damage and encroaching on and violating treaties and sovereign rights of tribes, that they are going to now introduce themselves and have a program to present to us. So I welcome very much Debra Topping, Sherry Couture, Karen Durfee, and Dawn Goodwin. Thank you, and please join us.
Bonjour, Gagayashi, Indigenous, Gawaba, Biganika, Gandujiba, Mangan Nindudem. My name is Dawn Goodwin, and I'm from White Earth, Minnesota. I'm near Bemidji, and I'm part of the Wolf Clan. My native name means everlasting wind, and that's why they put me first, keep me in line here. So thank you. I'm very honored. We are very honored to be part of this tonight. So like I said, my name is Dawn Goodwin. I'm one of the co-founders of R.I.S.E Coalition and Resilient Indigenous Sisters Engaging. And also I'm a representative with Indigenous Environmental Network. So I'll start off this evening going to talk about our migration story for the Anishinaabe people, and then talk to you a little bit about treaties, and then Debra will continue on and talk about water in line 3, and then Karen will inform us and talk about Talon metals and mining, and a little more about treaties and the Winters Doctrine. And then Sherry's going to wrap it all up and talk a little more about treaties. and we'll go from there. So to start off, I will share my screen.
You can share it. Use the share screen button.
Okay, so here we have our migration on the Anishinaabe. At one time, our people lived out on the East Coast. So you can see here where the arrows go north and south. So north into Canada, and then south around the Great Lakes. So at one time, our people, lived out here in the East Coast, and prophets came to us, and they said that we needed to move, that the light-skinned race would be coming to this land and bring much sickness, and that if we didn't move, we would perish. So some people stayed, and they're said to have suffered the most. But others took off and followed. There were 7 spots, 7 major stopping spots. So you'll see here, they're all numbered, 1 through 7. And so our people followed this way until they got, and so the directions we had were to travel to where the food grew out of the water. Others say food that grows on the water. And so that is what we did. We followed that direction, and that is why we are here today, where we are, all around the Great Lakes region. So that is where the food grows on the water. And so here's a picture of a rice lake. This is our prime rice lake in White Earth. It's the only organic deemed rice lake. And so it just looks like just a big old field of green, but that it will be all wild rice in harvest in the fall. And so I'll bring you to this. See an old picture. And so what it says here in Ojibwe, it says in English, we ourselves have been given this by the Spirit to go on looking after ourselves so that we will be well and content in the way that we are Anishinaabe. So that brings us to a time. So we were settled and we went where the food grew on the water. And the Anishinaabe were living good lives in community with each other. And so that last stopping spot where they were to be was in Madeline Island. And so as you look at this map, there came a time where the Anishinaabe were to be removed from Wisconsin and into, they wanted people to go to one area. So this was the Sandy Lake area. And so what happened was Governor Ramsey and the Indian agent had set up an idea to get all the Native people to this area. And they used to give annuity payments, so they would get money from the government to help sustain themselves at certain time. They're called annuity payments. So when the people, they changed where, so they're giving these annuity payments out in Sandy Lake. So many people traveled from Wisconsin and all over, even Madeline Island, and to all come and get this annuity payment. So it was slated to be there in October. Well, so it's fall is upon us. Winter's coming, and the annuity payment never came. It never came, and it started to get cold, and finally, and people were getting hungry, and they were starting to become dying of starvation and leaving. So when the annuity payment came, it was too late. Water was frozen over the canoes couldn't go. back. And so when food did come, eventually, it was rancid food, which made many people sickly. Some took off to go back home. So this is in 1850. Many people died. So it is said to be like 400, and we believe to be many more. 400 people perished at Sandy Lake. So there was a Chief Bijiki. He got word of what was happening, and he wanted to make sure that his people never had to leave their lands again. So he traveled with some other gentlemen, and they traveled across the United States from Madeline Island to by canoe and by ship and train. And they went to DC to appeal to legislation. They were pretty much scoffed at and looked down upon and not listened to. But Chief Bijiki did not give up. And finally, he caught the attention of others. And they got to have a meeting in Washington. And then that is when we were given the treaty, signed this treaty together for peace. And so it's often, this is an 1854 treaty, it's often misunderstood that we were given rights, but in all actuality, the Anishinaabe attained their right and to hunt and travel and gather. In all actuality, it is our settlers of the day that were given the right to come and live on the lands, and we agreed to live in peace together. And so this is provided by Deb here. This was a memorial site, and I will now pass it on to Deb.
Bonjour, Denue Maganuk. Hello, my relatives. I hope you can hear me and see me. Nice to be here. I have a lot to say. I can't look at myself though, otherwise I'll get all jacked up. But hi. So, R.I.S.E Coalition. Oh my goodness. We've been doing this for long before R.I.S.E Coalition came about. We've been protecting our waters, being Anishinaabe, that's our responsibility, right? We traditionally, our teachings are the nature is our relatives, right? So they give us our medicines and our foods, and shelter and whatnot, you know, that really. So me and my husband of 42 years, we raised our 3 daughters. We went moose hunting, deer hunting, rabbit snaring. We gathered maple syrup. We gathered wild rice together to feed our family for ceremonies, for everything. Wild rice is such an important part of the Anishinaabe, as Don was saying, that it's traditionally the first food a baby would eat and the last food an elder would eat. I don't know if anybody's had any wild rice, the real wild rice. My Uncle Jim Northup always used to say, if you go out into the driveway and pick a rock about that big, and put it in your pan with your wild rice. When that rock was done, the wild rice would be done. That's that patty rice, that fake rice that they cultivate. That's how long it takes for it to get done. Now the real stuff, you know, just boils for a couple minutes and it is delicious. It is a superfood. Who knew what is a superfood? It's, you know, it only grows in this area, as Don was saying. They cultivate it in Texas. The University of Minnesota is trying to figure out how to GMO it, genetically modify it. And it's cultivated in Texas and China and whatnot. Anyways, it's an antioxidant. It lowers the lipid. It's high in fiber. It's 14.7 grams of protein in 1 cup. 74 grams of carbohydrates. There's calcium, there's magnesium, there's potassium, phosphorus, zinc, and it's gluten-free. What more could you want? You can add it to anything and everything. So that's what I'm here to protect. I have 4 beautiful grandchildren. And who is going to protect the water for them? As a grandmother, I figured, I think that's up to me now. So Winona called me up and said, hey, can you head down to the county? They're going to be doing something about the wild rice. So I ran down there, didn't know nothing. Waited for my brother. I thought my brother, he's a good talker. Oh boy, he'll tell him everything. Call my brother, hurry up and get down here. Nobody was there but me. In a room full of white, middle-aged men who wanted nothing more for the economics for this region is to bring Enbridge here. And so nobody in that whole room did not have my best interest at heart. They didn't even give a care about my 4 grandchildren. Did they care about their own? Anyways, I had to get up. I didn't know what I was going to say. I had no clue what I was going to say, but I did know that I had to say something. Traditionally, you hear, we talk about asema, tobacco, and it's not the commercial tobacco. It's what we get from nature. And so I had a pocket of that and I put it in my hand and I said my little prayer. I don't know what I'm going to say. I have no clue, but I know I need to say something. This is historical, that this is going to be written somewhere. My voice will be, my God, can you imagine? And I don't even know what I'm going to talk about. So I went up there and did my best and said, no, Enbridge, don't poison our food. Don't poison our water, because that is genocide, plain and simple. I don't know what else we need to say. We've talked, we've cried, we've laughed, we've swore, we've kicked, we've sang, we've prayed. This asema, this tobacco, this is my direct line to creator. I can call him right up, have a conversation. Give me the strength to say what I need to say. Because I don't know how many gallons are going through that a day. I know it's a lot. I do know it's 42 inches big, that pipe. My auntie sews, we sew that for ceremony, we have to learn how to sew. And so my auntie was telling me, she said, if you put material up and you hold it to the end of your fingers to your neck, that's about a yard. I said, oh, cool, 36 inches. So about 42 inches is about this big, right? So that's how big that pipe is. Every single day. Every single day, 24/7, it's running. And we fought and we cried. In 2016, we had DAPL. Anybody hear of DAPL? No DAPL? Couple people. I hope some of yous were there. All right, nice, week rich. Thank you, thank you. I have a video I wanted to play because really the way they treated the Anishinaabe, the Indians in South Dakota, was human rights violations, plain and simple. I have, and I really want to play this video, and hopefully I can. I will. There's a couple. Okay, hold on. Let me see if I can do this. What is going on? Every human needs clean water to survive. Hi, I need to report an assault. Standing Rock. There's innocent, unarmed people being attacked with militia-style police firing at point-blank range with high-powered mace on unarmed people. Who protects the people? Yeah, if there's police there. The police are the ones attacking innocent, unarmed people. So what do we do to stop the police literally hitting people at point-blank range in the face? People can lose eyes. People are going to get hypothermia. People could die. We have elders here. We have children here. We have all ages here. Nobody is armed except for the police. Who protects the people from the police?
Well, I guess if you want to put it up the chain of command, the next person to talk to would be the governor's office.
I hope y'all were able to hear that. The video is atrocious. November, it was below zero. There was nothing but grandmas, elders, children were on that bridge to protect. And they had all the armor vehicles, all the water cannons, and below zero. And they sprayed that. There's a woman who got shot with one of those bullets who lost an arm. To protect water. To protect all of our drinking water. So many notes, my goodness. R.I.S.E coalition, we started to go to, after DAPL, after 2016, what they had said was, you know what, we didn't hear from the Indians. And so now that we're putting it through, now they want to say something. Natives don't have a relationship with the states, right? Because we're federal. So our relationship is directly with the federal government. So therefore, because the natives did not talk to the state or the state programs or whatever, because they talked to the federal. Anyways, they said, we didn't hear anything from the Indians. Now we're, now they want to talk about it. So I learned my lesson. I said, okay, I will find out everything. And I will let everybody know. We don't want this. This picture that she got up is the watershed map of the United States. So the middle there in pink is the Mississippi River Basin. We've done so much. We've been so many places. We've talked till we're blue in the face. We've been to the PUC. We've attended 70 meetings. We've sang. We've blocked traffic. I wrote a whole list of, but the one thing, as y'all know, is the power of prayer. So Husky blew up April 26, 2018. That's a refinery in Superior. It's about 26 miles from where I live. It was blowing up, exploding. It had almost hit a hydrogen fluoride tank. Oh yeah, that's it, number 9. You can see, there it is. There it is exploding. You can see the plume spreading. To the left of that picture is less than a mile away from that explosion is Lake Superior. What do we know about Lake Superior? Fresh water in the world. So that day, Sherry and I said, we need to go and get some water samples right now. We went all over there to get water samples. I think we went 26 places. I had sat at, will you go to number 7 there? Oh, wait, yep, that one. Number 6. We had gone to trying to get water samples. We had gone down this little area and it was a park. And I looked and there was that rock sitting there. And I thought, oh, well, what is that? So I wander on over and here it says, this is where Minnesota and the Ojibwe had the very first signing of the treaty in 1826. I looked around and I had my asema in my hand because I was gonna pray. I need to pray. Husky is blowing up. You can see the plumes. And I'm thinking, my God, I'm on holy ground. You know, they said there were over 600 families there at that signing. Can you imagine a whole community coming there? How long did it take for them to come there? Families, elders, babies. So I looked around and I saw a sign on the tree there that said, "No trespassing." I was starting to walk over to the river. And this is the sign I see. Fish advisory. Fish in this section of the St. Louis River are contaminated. Minnesota Department of Health recommends limiting meals of these fish. Call Minnesota Department of Health for more information. So I did. I called them right up. And it went, nah, 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 nah. Your call, whatever. I thought, well, maybe I dialed the wrong number. I better do this all over. Nope. So I don't know if somebody wants to try calling it again, but it doesn't work. So as I'm standing there with all of this information going on, husky blowing up, we went all over getting water samples. And I come to this park, Sherry and I see that sign. And I see the no trespassing sign. And then I see this sign, the fish advisory sign. And I'm standing right now, I'm standing on the bank of the St. Louis River. And I said, something needs to be done. My prayer, my direct phone call to Creator. I stood on that bank and I said, something needs to be done. But what? What is it that needs to be done? Who? If people knew, would they stop? Who? Somebody needs to tell these people. Maybe they don't know. Maybe they don't know. Maybe they don't understand that the pipeline is just right there, 5 miles away. Maybe they don't understand that a husky, it could have decimated Duluth and Superior. There's people that are 50 miles away cannot eat their food from the garden. And I sat there on the corner and I thought, somebody needs to tell the people. I turned around and there was Highway 23, where they're trying to build another improvement on the highway. But they have dug us up. Not once, not twice, not even 3 times. They know we're there. What do I do? How? Who? What? This is our water. This is our life. Do you not understand that? We told them. I even ran for lieutenant governor, for God's sakes. Can you imagine? Because you know what? Because I know that nobody has my best interest at heart except for me. Nobody cares about the water for my grandchildren. And I said, that's it. I guess it's up to me. Oh boy, we're in trouble. Whew. I barely know 42 inches, for God's sakes. We've told them. The lieutenant governor even said, you know what? I'll be on the side there with you. I'll be tied up to the machinery with you. And I thought to myself, if you're second in command, why would you need to be tied up to the machinery? So, the power of prayer, huh? Here I am, 4 years later, 5 years later, talking to you all. We've talked to the county, we've talked to the tribe, we've talked to Minnesota Indian Affairs Council, we've talked to the county, we've talked to the cities, our own local cities, we've talked to the BIA. There's a picture of us down at the Capitol with R.I.S.E. Yeah, that didn't do us any good. All of this that we've been doing isn't doing us any good. They still built Line 3. We had Romer, Rights of Mississippi. I didn't know what we were gonna do. We're all kind of sitting in the Zoom looking at each other, didn't know nothing. I said, well, has anybody ever ridden the canoe down the Mississippi? No, they said. I said, well, let's start there. Then we'd know what we're protecting. In the meantime, my husband has stage 4 cancer. We all made sacrifices. So we went down there, we went down the Mississippi, and there was a drought. I never knew I had to walk. I pushed the canoe, pulled it for 18 miles. We did that summer. That was the summer Minnesota gave Enbridge, even though we were in an exceptional drought, Minnesota gave Enbridge a permit for an additional 5 billion gallons of fresh water. We've done I understand the political. We've done get out the vote. I've registered. My auntie was 86 years old. She registered very first time. Her grandson just turned 18. He registered to vote. I get it. I understand. But what is it doing? It hasn't done us any good. We are part of the Women's Earth and Climate Action Network International. We can. We formed the Indigenous Women's Treaty Alliance. We just recently, Dawn and I came back from DC to deliver 9,000 petitions to stop Line 5. We got there and they wouldn't even let us in the building. You know, because women, old ladies in skirts are pretty dangerous. So we had to go meet him across the street, carrying 9,000 signatures. Told him no again. And what did he tell us? You would never believe what he told us.
So I'm just wondering, are one or of your other sisters or two going to speak so that?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you for keeping me on track.
Well, there's a lot to.
Yes. Okay. I will actually let Karen Durfee go next. So thank you.
Well, I just want to say that when you were speaking about, you spoke out so emotionally and forcefully about what to do. I think that's the question we all ask, and you've presented so many examples of what to do in many dimensions of activity from, so I appreciate very much reminding us that this is a multifaceted aspect of movement, of individual response, as well as movement building and collective action. So thank you so much.
Hello.
Hello.
As you probably know, my name's Karen Durfee, and I am a Fond du Lac elder who lives on Fond du Lac Reservation with my family, and that is part of the Minnesota Chippewa tribe of Lake Superior. Don is part of Lake Superior, the Minnesota Chippewa tribe. Sherry is too, and same with Deb. One of the things that Fond du Lac is part of, though, is the 1854 treaty. And it has the boundary of land called the ceded territory. And this is where we get to more or less be on neutral ground and hunt, fish, gather in this ceded territory. And so what happened is there's a trade-off. The US government would be able to have rights to the timber and minerals, while the Anishinaabe people had rights to hunt, fish, and gather, which would also mean like wild ricing. Both parties agreed to live in peace and harmony to keep the lands and water prestige. That's what the treaties were about between everybody, the Europeans and the Native Americans. And I think that was pretty good, you know, live in harmony and keep the lands and water prestige and clean. So anyway, that brings us now to how the Indian water rights became. And the doctrine is called the Winters Doctrine, which was established 1908. And the case involved the Fort Belknap Reservation in Montana, which had been created by an 1888 agreement out of a much larger area previously set aside for the concerned tribes. Despite the clear ruling of the Winters Indian water rights, they were mostly ignored for decades. I'd say more of a century, but thereafter, from the Winters and the Arizona versus California cases, it is possible to summarize some of the characteristics of the reserved Indian water rights. And it's broken down into like 5, because the Winter Doctrine is kind of not large, but it's kind of complicated. But I'm just going to break it down to 5 parts. The first one is the Winters' rights are creatures of the federal law, which defines their extent. I guess I am an Indigenous creature, but anyway. The establishment of the reservation by treaty, statute, and executive order includes an implied reservation of water rights in sources within or bordering the reservation. The water rights are also reserved as of the date of creation of the applicable portion of the reservation. Competing users with prior appropriation dates under state law take precedence over the Indian rights, but those with later dates are subordinate. 4, the quality of water reserved for Indian use is that amount sufficient to irrigate all practical, irritable, or irrigatable acreage of the reservation. And then 5, winter rights to water are not lost by non-use. And so that comes down to now where this agreement between them taking the timber and the minerals and us taking, you know, the hunting and fishing so we can just eat and live, they are impeding on our rights because they are poisoning the water while they're taking the minerals and just decimating the water. And when that is happening, then that also affects the wildlife, which we mostly live off of. And the water also sustains wild rice. And also I'll bring up, since Enbridge went through, we have lost our wild rice privileges because our wild rice isn't growing anymore because of the pollution in the water and also underneath the aquifer, which is underground water. And so that's one of the reasons why we are also keeping an eye on the water, because our rights have been like dormant when we are supposed to be the keepers. And I think we kind of left it out of, how would you say, we kind of left it alone. And then what happened is the other stewards started taking over the care. And what we figured out is that they aren't good stewards of keeping the water and the lands clean. So we're trying to get our rights back. And that's where we've gone to the DNR down in Minneapolis, and we've gone to certain organizations to try to help about that. And that's still in progress. But anyway, I will be saying the need of water is the most important aspect of life. Without water, there is no life. So now I'm going to get into a little bit of the mining situation because that is also going on. We did stop Polymet, which is a sulfide nickel mine, and we put them on hold because they wanted to go into the boundary waters, which is the direct watersheds going into Lake Superior, which is the biggest, one of the biggest freshwater bodies. And so we put them on hold, which was Fond du Lac legal team helped a lot with that. But now we have Talon Metals, and they have become partners with Rio Tinto mine too. So anyways, we decided that we don't want our communities to be sacrificed at all. And the proposed Rio Tinto Talon Metals mine near Tamarack, Minnesota, threatens lakes, rivers, and wild rice. And Talon Metals has not yet submitted a formal mine plan to the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources, but it has briefed investors. The company will soon be seeking permits, including possibly for wetland destruction and for the discharge of contaminations into the air and the water. I mean, even in a public presentation, when they've been asked, what is the scope of your mine? And they say, well, it's just going to be a small little imprint. It's going to be about the size of a football field. But in the same time, they're telling Elon Musk that it's really going to be like 11 miles and 31,000 acres, which is way bigger than a football field. Because I think a football field is like 3 acres. But anyway, so they're already trying to finagle more or less to get these permits. And it's going to be on the boundaries of 2 watersheds, which is the Mississippi River and the St. Croix River with their watersheds, which go directly to the ocean and also affects a lot of wildlife and the fish and everything. So anyway, and up on the Tamarack, though, where this nickel mine wants to go, Talon, it's on the Black Spruce Bog, where the movement of water underground has not been studied. Like a lot of this stuff hasn't been studied at all, at least not carefully enough. And they're on peat bogs, which are globally rare, covering only about 3% of the Earth's surface. Yet they account for approximately 30% of the Earth's soil carbon, including the Mission Technology University. They also, excuse me, just a minute. Oh, according to the Michigan Technology University, lowering the water levels by pumping millions of gallons of water a day from underground could decimate these vulnerable and rare ecosystems. And protecting peatlands and fresh water and the diversity of life here in the Northland is a climate solution. Mining in the wetland ecosystem will harm treaty protected lands and water, including some of the most productive wild rice lakes in the continent. And world as a planet gets hotter and the water becomes more scarce, we know we can't poison the little that remains. This is why we are doing what we're doing too, because, water is life once again. So anyway, Talon Metals has accepted premature subsidies before environmental reviews, and they have also received a $114 million government subsidy before any mine plan that has been submitted to public consideration. Also, I'll just say it because it's public, is Talon Metals is owned by Tony Beets, who resides in Michigan. And he owns 51% of Talon, and then the Rio Tinto owns 49%. I just know that this mining will put our people and culture at risk because water is life, and this is our home. And also the St. Croix and the Mississippi River have not been studied enough what the impact would be from the Talon mine. And some of the bodies of water, especially bodies of water that have been labeled impaired, when they do not meet a water quality standard. And, this usually happens when there are too many mercury concentrations in the water. The fish are higher than the standard of mercury. So far, the rivers are St. Louis River, Floodwood River, Cloquet River, Whiteface River, and Barris River, and Port Ridge rivers. And what impact does this also have on the fish that have too much mercury already?
Exactly.
So anyway, also Fond du Lac has also found impaired waters on our own reservation. And so what this also comes down to is that when we have polymet and these other mines that want to sulfate and do their nickel mining and whatever, it gets into everything. And then we have Enbridge and all their waste. And, they're not the only culprit. I mean, there's like paper mills, and we're talking like Minnesota is getting hammered from all directions, and everything is impaired. I mean, what the heck? This is our water, I mean, and I don't, I hate saying this, but, I've always said, how can people be so naive and not care? And I could even say stupid, that they are polluting their own water. I mean, even creatures don't mess their own water and food in their area where they sleep and eat, and here we are. And then on top of it, it's a lot of foreign companies.
Yeah.
And what it comes down to, I couldn't figure it out, but it all comes down to greed.
Yeah.
And that's how
yeah.
I feel.
Yeah.
So, all right, but thank you.
Well, you've put it very well. And I can see that Minnesota is becoming a sort of sacrifice zone, isn't it? But of course, that's happening in so many places, which is why I greatly appreciate that we're building this, we're creating this sort of allyship with you there, and envisioning ourselves individually and collectively as water and land protectors, not only where you are, but in many areas across this country, but also in other countries as well. And we really do all have to rise up against this sort of the wealthy 1% and corporations who are just really ready and willing to do all they can to profit while while others suffer. And we violate all the rights and what would you say, the right of nature to exist and the right to water. So I thank you very much. And now I think we have some minutes for Sherry, and then we'll go to some breakout rooms very soon. And I hope, so we've recorded this and people can have access to the recording, and then perhaps you might help us make a handout about a lot of the information that you've given us this evening. So thank you so much. Sherry, where are you?
I guess tonight we've heard a lot about treaties and how they matter, and if they matter to other countries. There are over 10,497 treaties that have been signed with the United States and the indigenous people. Some say there's over 12,000, and then if you include the wampum belts with other countries, our relationship does not really coexist with the state. So when we said no to line 3, according to treaties, when the state tried to let Enbridge in, that should have been it, unless an act of Congress or the President of the United States let them in. That is our relationship with the United States of America. And if somebody comes in and tries to make us make bad decisions like pipelines, mining, etc., it is upon the United States of America to drop everything and come to the aid of their children and tell them, you cannot do that. So these are things that we learned on line 3. Education, we had to learn stuff really quick about tar sands, PUCs, comment unions, Army Corps of Engineers. We began to make allies, meet a bunch of other people, and we introduced Minnesota to treaties and gave them quick educations.
Yes, that's right.
Over 900 arrests were taken in for line 3. Many of them were to honor the treaties. R.I.S.E coalition took over an Enbridge easement for 8 days. We walked over 256 miles in the extreme drought from Honor the Earth to the state capitol, asking the state to do their duty, which they swore when they took their oath, to honor the treaty. because the United States has yet to honor one treaty that lives within over 597 sovereign nations. When really we should be going to the UN and saying, guess what? The United States is being very naughty and look what they're doing. And because yet they haven't to honor the treaties, that's why the state that we are in, not only in America, in the world. Wouldn't it be homeless people? Yeah, we would still have things, but we would only take what we need. We would protect that water. Most of us have been arrested as R.I.S.E Coalition. They also built a Northern Task Force. They committed international crimes because we never thought the public utilities would allow Enbridge, a foreign country, a private LLC company, to pay and reimburse American police. Minnesota, they even formed a Northern Task Force, bought and paid for by Enbridge, while international crimes will be being committed. If a foreign country cannot do that. So we took it to the water, the front lines. Instead of taking a lot of rest, we would sing the niggy song. We would just go to the water because they can't arrest you in there. We slept in ditches. We drove through plumes. And in the meantime, we kept educating people about honoring the treaties and following the Anishinaabe prophecies along the way, as Don first began with you, that one day all the four colors of the medicine would come together and create this new world. And try to do it, as they say, in your way, peace, but in ours, in a good way. And we had a real good time too, and we showed America how to resist and stand up. And try to do it in a good way. I think that's about all I have to say.
Well, Sherry.
And I was just going to say, Nancy, I can close it out with an ask, or go ahead, Nancy, and then I can close it out with our ask action.
Okay, so I think that your closing there, Sherry, with resist and stand up is relates to the way that we framed water on the front lines for peace as coming into embodying your agency as an individual and a collective group to advocate, to educate yourself so then you can advocate and present information, facts, figures, statistics, everything needed to let your adversaries know that you know what they know, or you're pressing to know what they know, so that they reveal information and don't and there's some transparency, but also that helps you hold them to some requirement of responsibility. And then we also our third element is action, taking action. And so you have shown by these presentations to us how you in many ways took action. And of course, that means that along the way, you apply the lessons that you're learning in what kind of actions are effective and how you can be efficient, how you can protect your safety. And of course, that keeps going and going and going, I know. But what an example. And I think that as we all begin to see that we are part of this global water and land protectors coalition of women, that we should all congratulate ourselves in making the effort to protect present and future generations and all of nature. So thank you very, very much. And let's stay in touch. So now, oh, good, you've got some actions up there, Fang. Excellent.
Yes.
Yes,
Thank you,
good.
Nancy.
Yeah.
Yes, we just touched a little bit on the whole story.
Oh, I know.
So, yeah, so hopefully in the future we can visit some more and in these breakout sessions. So as you know, you may know, Line 393 became, after it was in its new corridor, is the same as Line 5 as it goes into Wisconsin. So right now, Bad River is facing terrible risk. So there's some action you can take. Right now, we would like it to be shut down through Wisconsin and Bad River. So for Line 5, there's reroute happening. And so we're wondering, we hear that Tony Evers has not been communicating very well. So we ask you to call Wisconsin Governor Tony Evers at 608-266-1212 and ask if he is in support of Enbridge's Line 5 and to stop the fast track of the Line 5 reroute by the DNR and Army Corps of Engineers.
Okay.
And also, you can take action.
So could you?
Oh, go ahead.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
Yep. And then also you can take action, give public comment. The United States Army Corps of Engineers in St. Paul is evaluating an application from Enbridge to discharge dredged and fill material in waters of the U.S. and install pipeline under navigable water of the U.S. associated with the construction of the proposed Line 5 segment relocation. So this will take place, the public hearing, Tuesday, June 4th, 2024 at the Northwood Technical College located at 2100 Beezer Avenue in Ashland, Wisconsin.
But you have to be there. You have to be there in person, correct?
Yes.
Or
but
can
you can also give comment.
You can submit comments.
Yes.
Okay.
If you cannot be in person.
But
that's in-person event, 2 sessions, morning and evening.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to mention tar sands oil is what is flowing through Line 3 and 5. And yeah. And so if you don't know much about it, I encourage you to go on and research tar sands. It
so what are the scale?
Yeah, it sinks in water, is highly carcinogenic.
Yeah. And it corrodes the pipes that it rolls through. And so the pipes aren't even safe.
Yeah, there has to be coated with like a special coating, and it still isn't, efficient. Over time, it eats it away.
What water is this? What
we're talking about tar sands oil.
Tar sands.
Yep, otherwise known as bitumen.
Thank you.
My sisters, you all knocked it out of the park, and thank you so much. I mean, wow, it's been a long time since I've really, I'm committed to a lot of different issues at this point, and I feel like stretched thin, and I can't fragment off anymore, but I'm kind of like, how do I help? I just feel so horrible that groups like yours have to hold it down for everybody else. And it's like, I'm really glad that you took this opportunity to talk with WILPF National and International, because it'll be on YouTube and the rest of the world, so that you will get more people coming in there to reinforce your efforts.
And Dee, thank you for all of the people that you found and encouraged and invited to participate, to present to us, to share, to teach us. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is actually an effort that stemmed from Nancy Price's conversations. The R.I.S.E group and their amazing presentation were referred to Nancy from Kelly Lundeen of Nuke Watch.
Cool.